Confession on the way. Your people's verdict will be expected. Remember, if your confession is read out, then you do get one of those smart speakers from us. So send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. If we use your confession, you get the smart speaker. So the text 61054, start your message with Simon for the people's verdict on tonight's story, which comes from Joanne. And Sister Katie Susie is in the house.
Yep.
And brother from another gutter sitting where he normally does.
Yes, indeed.
Father Simon, the year is 1973. The place is Hastings. And I was a mere 5 years old, says Joanne. Okay. At school, our teachers had been undertaking the not inconsiderable task of teaching us to write. I say not incomprehensible as the talent pool in my school was not a deep one, but our teachers did the best they could. However, I was a diligent student and helped out my teachers by actually sharing their view that writing may be a useful skill in life. And as such, I did my best.
Joanne.
Well done.
Anyway, I progressed quickly to the point where I was now able to write my name with great confidence and aplomb. Not content with, not content with simply writing Joanne, the way that most people would write it, I wrote it with my own unique flourish, comprising a capital J, lowercase o, and then a somewhat racy capital A.
Ooh.
Two lowercase n's, and finishing it bizarrely with a lowercase e, but one that was bigger than any of the capitals you've ever seen and excessively curly. It was my way of making my mark upon the world.
Yeah.
I spent that summer writing my name at every opportunity, on paper, in books, on every surface I could find. I wrote it with a stick in muddy ground, in the dewy grass and on pavements. We, myself, my older sister, we'll call her Julie, and younger brother, let's call him Kevin, were rarely out without a stick. Remember, this was the 70s and Hastings.
Yes. Yeah.
And we weren't blessed with the range of toys and diversions that children of today enjoy.
We had sticks.
A stick was the very height of entertainment. Anyway, in my never-ceasing quest to write my name at every possible opportunity, I was sat on the steps outside our house where my eyes fell on our father's pride and joy, his red Hillman estate. It was the only car he had ever bought new, and he never did again. It was early, and the car was still damp with dew. Now, I knew that dew was a perfect substance in which my name could be written. Why, I'd done it on dewy windows, the dewy grass, and even dewy fences. So my next move was obvious. I picked up my trusty stick, approached the car, and starting on the passenger door, I carefully formed the letters of my name. Capital J, lowercase o, capital A, two lowercase n's, and a massive lowercase e. Joanne. Perfect. It stretched across the side as it was spaced out nicely. My teachers would be so proud of my commitment to the art of writing. I returned inside and continued my day happily. However, my happiness came to an abrupt end as my mother called for us to come outside. Once there, we found my father standing by his car, staring at it in a combination of horror, anger, and disbelief. "What's wrong?" I asked my sister with genuine curiosity. "Why is Dad looking at his car with a combination of horror, anger, and disbelief?" Those might not have been my actual words, but almost 50 years ago, I'm paraphrasing. It's close enough. My sister looked at me as if I was an idiot. A bit harsh. I don't remember her writing her name as well as I did at my age, and pointed silently at the car. The dew had evaporated, but there, proudly displayed on the door, was Joanne. And it was then that I realised that dew did not provide a particularly protective coating, and that my stick had somehow penetrated through the watery surface and scratched away at the paintwork itself. Who knew? Certainly not me. We hadn't started science yet. My father looked at me. "Joe, did you do this?" He spoke quietly. "Oh, sorry. Joe, did you do this?" Yet with great effort, his jaw was clenched tightly. I was starting to get a sensation that he wasn't entirely happy, and my legs went a bit wobbly. I considered my response and weighed up the evidence in front of me. My name, written my way on the side of his car. Three possible suspects. Me, Joanne, my sister, whose name was not Joanne, and my brother, whose name was even more not Joanne.
Yeah.
There was only one thing I could say. "Wasn't me, Dad," I said confidently.
All right.
"I don't know anything about it at all." "Of course it was you," said my father. "Own up." My dad was the disciplinarian, and although a lovely man, he was scary when he was angry. "Dad, it wasn't me, honestly. I don't know who it was." I shrugged helplessly at the impossible mystery with which we were faced, quaking inside. This game of verbal ping-pong continued for a while, my father telling me he knew it was me batting back that it wasn't. To be fair, I felt I was on fairly strong ground. If no one actually saw me do it, then how could they know it was me? There was, of course, the matter of it being my name engraved on my father's helmet, possibly forever. But that was far from concrete evidence. So I stuck to my guns. And now, after all these years, I feel I have to confess that, surprisingly, it was indeed me who wrote my name on my father's car that day. I'm sure my father will greet this revelation with a heavy sigh and a... well, of course it was you. But it will be a relief to have unburdened myself of the secret I've carried for so long. So sorry, Dad, I'm sorry that I damaged your car, and I'm sorry I didn't own up. I hope that both you and the venerable collective of Greatest Hits Radio can forgive me. Yours, Joanne, capital J, lowercase o, capital A, 2 lowercase n's, and a huge lowercase e. Nicely done.
Lovely. Nicely
signed. Sister Katie Susie, what do you say?
I mean, I think, Joanne, you're forgiven for 2 reasons. Mainly because your dad definitely knew it was you, so this is no revelation, this is no news to your dad. He was very aware, though. I respect the honesty now. And also, as you said, you hadn't started science yet, so how are you to know? I mean, that's definitely what they teach you in school. They say don't take a stick to a car, so who can blame you, Joanne?
Well, okay, that's very lenient, brother from another gutter.
I am also going to forgive for very similar reasons. One as well, let's not forget, we all love that signature. What a great signature it was, capital J, little lowercase o, capital A, etc. Loved it. And very much, I'm reminded of the words of Terence Trent D'Arby, where she was signing her name across his car. Signing his name across his car!
Okay, well, we're going to leave
Terence Trent D'Arby.
Forgiven then.
Brilliant.
Okay. Do you forgive Joanna? On the text 61054, start your message with Simon. Forgiven or not, it's all down to you. Meantime, we need to bring you the people's verdict from Joanne's confession. At the age of 5, she carved her name into her dad's car, but blamed it she had no idea who it was. It could have been anyone, but it just happened to be in her handwriting. She's confessed after 50 years. People's verdict, here it comes.
So, forgiven, says Zainab. My dad could always see straight through my lies as a kid, noting the panic in my eyes and saying, I promise it wasn't me, a few too many times. I'm sure that Joanne's dad did the same. Terence says, forgiven, I'd entered my dad's pride and joy in my teens, so I know the feeling. And Joe says, not forgiven, but only because I'm bitter about someone scraping my car earlier today. Too soon, Simon, too soon.
Too soon indeed. Okay, so Joanne, thank you very much indeed for your confession. You will get the smart speaker. If you fancy one yourself, send in your confession. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Right, it's confession time. So thank you. Final flourish. So don't forget what the deal is here. It's 14 minutes to 6 o'clock, by the way. And if you send in your confession and we use it, you get a smart speaker. That's the way of it. Everyone chips in with the people's verdict. 61054 on the text. You start your message with Simon. Your confession, however, comes to confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. And today's winner of the smart speaker is Nigel. Another Nigel. Nigel is already on the way with his food. We've had a look at his leg, which is like Frankenstein's head. Basically, we should take a photograph and put it on.
Let's not.
No,
let's definitely not.
So Nigel says, greetings, Father Simon and the confessional crew, brother from another gutter, and Sister Katie Susie. What I'm about to tell you has taken me nearly 50 years to confess. So let me take you back to the halcyon days of glam rock. We were playing Slade just a moment ago. Shocking hair. And Noel Edmonds on the Radio 1 Breakfast Show. That's the era that we're in. My story starts at a boys' boarding school for the less well-educationally endowed, somewhere near a seaside resort in Dorset. The school was in an old country house which had seen better days, but retained that smoky leatherette smell when you walked in. Quite sure I know what a smoky leatherette smells like. Presumably it's smoky and a bit leathery.
And smells a bit like leather.
Anyway, that's where we are. The teachers, like the pupils, had mostly failed to make it anywhere else, so it ended up in the only place that would take them.
Okay.
Lovely.
It's a very interesting educational establishment Nigel is describing here. Among those teachers was a maths teacher, table tennis fan, goofy-toothed, long-haired, music-loving hipster named Bugsy. I'm afraid real name is withheld, as repercussions could ensue, even though this was 50 years ago. Bugsy, like all the teachers, lived in and had rooms dotted around the country house where we were being educated at. Now, Bugsy was a great vinyl music collector. In fact, his room was full of boxes of them, and when you went past his room, you could always hear the latest hits blaring loudly from within. He boasted that his collection of vinyl album covers had taken years to collect and were very rare. And so to the day in question. As normal, we had an afternoon sports session on a very muddy and wet football pitch for a kick around, where the participants had as much interest in looking to sneak to a large bush behind one of the goals for a smoke. Hence, a smoky haze of number 6, filter tipped, used to envelop that end of the pitch.
It was the 70s.
It's the 70s. Everyone smoked when they played football back in those days.
Yeah.
Obviously, don't smoke
at
kids.
all,
because it's a ridiculously stupid thing to do. Anyway, that's what was happening. Half the players were on the pitch, the other half were behind the bush having a fag. When the game was over, a suitably muddy bunch of teenagers stinking of tobacco headed back into the changing rooms for a well-earned shower. This day, though, was different. The communal showers were only dispensing extremely cold water, so I sneaked off upstairs to the communal bathroom for what I hoped would be a well-earned hot soak. As I started to fill the bath, I realised that I'd left my towel downstairs in the shower room, so I quickly hastened downstairs to retrieve it. When I got there, the games teacher shouted at me as to why I had not yet had my shower, as everyone else had finished and was getting dressed. I made up some quick excuse that was rather feeble and didn't pass the test, and proceeded to freeze myself in the shower. I got out of the shower as quickly as I could, got dressed, and joined the rest of my classmates for our next teaching lesson. If you're listening at all, you'll realise where the danger lies in this confession. At the end of the afternoon lesson, we filed down to our food hall for high tea. This was for many the highlight of the day, as food of any description was a blessed relief from lessons. We sat in rows on long tables, waiting to see what Dickensian delight would be brought out from the kitchen. However, this day was different. No food appeared. Instead, the headmaster, Grimes, BA Honours, Stoke-on-Trent, stormed into the hall, which was most unusual as he normally never would come anywhere near us when we were eating high tea. He paced into the centre of the hall, his cloak billowing, and loudly and angrily announced that someone had left a bathroom tap running, which had caused a bath upstairs to overflow.
Oh, no.
Worse was to follow as he then shouted that one of the teachers' rooms had been the victim of a sudden surge of water from a collapsing ceiling. Worse even still, if it could get even worse still, the said teacher had narrowly escaped injury from falling plasterboard. The damage would run into shillings and pence. Maybe a couple of guineas. He demanded to know immediately who had committed this heinous crime, or else there would be harsh repercussions. As you can imagine, the hall went very quiet, with nearly 200 boys all casting around suspicious looks at who the offender could be, but this wasn't the type of educational establishment where anyone admitted to anything. And then the icing on the cake, the hall doors swept open and a very big, draggled, wet teacher, yes, it was Bugsy, appeared holding aloft some very wet and mushy album covers. They were ruined, but we could make out Dark Side of the Moon, soggy, Tubular Bells, very soggy, Brain Salad Surgery, completely ruined. Amongst many of the classics, Father Simon, you play on the album show on Greatest Hits Radio every Sunday afternoon.
So corporate.
Bugsy was shouting that whoever did this would lose an appendage or something like that. Needless to say, no one owned up. As I mentioned, it wasn't that kind of educational establishment. And to make matters worse, Grimes, the head teacher, BA Honours, Stoke-on-Trent, cancelled an upcoming exeat, which only helped discourage anyone from coming forward in fear of getting a good beating from other schoolboys. As we mentioned, it was the 1970s.
Different times.
I have carried this guilt with me all these years and would like to apologise profoundly and profusely to all schoolboys who remember the incident. To Mr. Grimes, BA Honours, Stoke-on-Trent, who'll be turning in his grave, but mostly to Bugsy, who I hope was able to replace his very valuable vinyl collection. Therefore, I humbly request your forgiveness, which you dispense so well on Drive Time. There's Nigel there pleading to get any kind of forgiveness. We'll get the people's verdict in a moment. But Sister Katie Susie, first of all.
Yeah, I really feel for Bugsy because he lost his prized possessions, and ultimately, Nigel, it was because for some reason you thought you were more deserving of a bath than everyone else. Everyone else suffered in those cold showers, and you snuck off when you could have done the same as them, so you are not forgiven.
Brother from another gutter.
Well, I have to say I feel sorry for Nigel. I mean, obviously, I don't agree with baths, by the way. Always have showers. Never sitting in a bath like sitting in your own filth. So for that reason, normally I would not forgive. However, I'm going to forgive this time because of the threat of cancelling the Exiat. Try cancelling my Exiat. That's not going to go well. And I believe no harm, no towel.
No harm, no towel. Very good. It's a
forgiven.
winner. Got there in the end. 61054. Start your message with Simon. Do you forgive Nigel? Yes or no? 61054. First word is Simon. Simon at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. The people's justice is on the way. However, first of all, the people's verdict on tonight's confession, which came from Nigel, and a tale from a grotty old public school 50 years ago, and how his overflowing bath destroyed a teacher's bedroom and all of his album collection. And here's the people's verdict right now.
So Tara is not forgiving. I'm with Sister Katie, she says. Why did he think he could sneak off for a bath? It didn't sound like Nigel had the time for that before his next lesson. Tony says, not forgiven. If someone dares to put a mug of tea near one of my records, I get nervous, let alone if someone ruined them with water damage. And Sally says, forgiven. Thank you for the accidental suggestion of a bath this evening. Perfect thing to switch off after work. You're wrong, Matt.
No, it is. Well, they have different functions. A shower is fantastic on a daily basis.
Correct.
And a bath, therefore, luxurious soaking.
Needed
Getting
ever.
rid of achy muscles.
No.
No, not for you.
Sitting in your own filth.
I think you've got a problem there.
Yes.
Your confession, if you'd like to get a smart speaker just like Nigel, you send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.